Today's video is brought to you by Adept Roll. Hey everyone, Katie and Sergeant Steele here, and today we're doing our very first unit review from the 10th edition Codex for Astra Militarum, and that is the Artillery Team. Why? Because it's the unit I'm most excited about. So, without further ado, let's dive into this brand new unit that's kind of new and kind of not, and replaces some units that used to exist out of Forge World long ago, and now it's back in plastic with a lot of aesthetic changes and a couple new weapon options. So let's explain all that. So here in front of us are actually some of the original Forge World resin artillery pieces for the quad launcher and the heavy mortar. I have lots and lots of these because you used to be able to take them in like squadrons of 3. And so I think I have like 6 quad launchers and 6 heavy mortars. So I went ahead and just repurposed them, put them on the new base sizes for the artillery teams, and bought some third-party sandbags just to sprinkle around them and so forth in order to kit bash them. So these are not the new models. These are models I've already had that I'm kind of making work for the new edition. And I'm very excited to be able to reuse these models because I thought they were going to go away. So that's really, really awesome. Okay, let's talk about the unit stats. So the artillery team has 3 inches of movement, toughness 7, 3 up save, 10 wounds, leadership 7, and OC 3. It is a 1 model unit. So each of these is toughness 7 with 10 wounds and a 3 up armor save. That is right. It has a Space Marine armor save. So that is really, really good. And they're also very tough. I mean, 10 wounds is no joke, and you're likely going to have these in cover. Maybe behind an Aegis defense line, maybe behind a building, but they'll be hidden somewhere out of view in order to make sure that they get a cover save. So, great stats on this unit. I'm already liking that right out of the gate. Let's talk about their weapon options. So they have 5 different ranged weapons. First, let's just get out of the way that they do have a las gun, a single las gun, even though I've modeled 1 or 2 of these with an extra las gun. They have 1 las gun each, and that is the same stats as all las guns. So I'm actually going to skip over that. Its other 4 weapons, its primary weapons, are the heavy mortar, the heavy quad launcher, and then it also has a multiple rocket launcher and a siege cannon, which I'm not showing here. And I do love those variants a lot, so I cannot wait to get a hold of the kit and build it and paint it. I'm obviously filming this video before those come out. So, and so it has 4 different weapons. The heavy mortar, let's talk about it first. It is blast, heavy, and indirect fire. All 4 of these weapon options have that same 3 things in common. One of them has something a little extra. 2 of them have something a little extra, but all 3 of them have that. They're all blast, they're all heavy, and they're all indirect fire. It's very important. So they have 48-inch range. The heavy mortar is D6 plus 3 attacks, ballistic skill 5, strength 8, -1 AP, and 2 damage. So this one is going to be minimum 4 shots, up to 9 shots, not counting blasts, so maybe 10 or 11 or 12 or 13 shots, right? It's going to be hitting on 5s typically, because with heavy, shooting out a line of sight, it's going to be +1, then you're going to get -1 for indirect, you'll be back to 5s. But with strength 8, that's going to make this really good at shooting Space Marines or other kind of elite infantry, right, that are tougher. The strength 8 is really going to help you get those wounds. Now, the AP -1 is not great, but there are various ways to kind of help out with that, to remove cover or get additional AP and so forth. So this depends on your detachment, depends on the stratagems. But the flat damage too is also another guarantee to make sure that you're taking out elite infantry like Space Marines with every single shot that goes through. So next, we have the heavy quad launcher. So also blast, heavy, and direct fire, and twin linked. Ooh, I love me some twin linked. So that means we can re-roll the wound roll. Okay. All right. It is range 48, 2d6 shots. So minimum 2 up to 12, not counting blast. So maybe up to, 16 shots or 14 shots with blast. Depends on how many models in the enemy unit. It's also ballistic skill 5, strength 5, no AP, 1 damage each. So what I imagine the role of the heavy quad launcher being is the chaff infantry, right? Your jackals, your cultists, your poxwalkers, right? At strength 5, no AP, 1 damage, you're just hoping they fail their saves. And you're going to just rain fire down upon them, rain shells on them until they're no more. And they're going to hopefully fail their usually 5-up saves so that you can do that. Next, we have the multiple rocket launcher, not shown here. It is anti-infantry 3 up. Keep that in mind. So what anti-infantry 3 up means is that you always wound infantry keyword units on a 3 or higher. It is 48-inch range, D6 plus 3 shots. Ballistic skill 5, strength 2. I know what you're thinking. Strength 2, wow, that's terrible. But it doesn't matter. It's anti-infantry 3 up. At minus 1 AP, 1 damage. Now, this also, I didn't say it, but it also says blast, heavy, and indirect, because I said they all do. So what this one is good for is like an all-comer to damage infantry, but it has another benefit. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. So with the D6 plus 3 shots, minimum 4, up to 9, plus blast. You're going to be wounding everything on 3s. Not bad. Hitting on 5s, unless you have an order, then you're going to be hitting on 4s. I really, really like this one because it's more reliable than the heavy quad launcher. The heavy quad launcher is going to guarantee you get wounds because you're going to have that twin linked. But this one, you're going to wound on a 3-up anyhow, no matter what the toughness of that infantry unit is. Right? They could be toughness 6. They could be toughness 7. They could be toughness 4. You're always wounding on a 3-up. And that is pretty reliable. And that's kind of a good thing to keep in mind and to have. And then this specific weapon will get an extra benefit. Now, the last one is the siege cannon. It's blast, heavy, and direct fire. 48-inch range. See the trend? They're all 48-inch range. D6 number of shots. So minimum 1, up to 6, plus blast. That's pretty swingy. I don't like that about any weapon, but we'll see why in a second. It is ballistic skill 5, strength 12. Strength 12. That means it is going to hurt it could hurt a Rogel Dorn on a 4 to wound. Okay? That is strong. AP minus 2, flat 3 damage. The siege cannon can kill Terminators outright. The siege cannon can slay other elite infantry. The siege cannon can hurt vehicles. It is a devastating gun. Not that it has devastating wounds. I'm saying it as in dramatically. It is very impactful. And I really like that one. And I think I'm definitely going to build several of the siege cannons because I like its profile. And I like the idea of being able to give it, take aim, and then having it hit. Now, each one of these also has close combat weapons. It's 3 attacks, weapon skill 4, strength 3, no AP, 1 damage. Because it has 3 infantry models on it. I do like that they keep it simple that way. Nice and easy to kind of track and follow. Very good. The only thing I think it's going to get a little confusing is that the artillery team does have a very different stat line from the field ordnance battery. So I'll cover that in its video. But I think that's going to trip people up a little bit, realizing that the toughness, save, and wounds, and OC, and movement, pretty much everything except for leadership, what is everything except for leadership, is different. So you're going to have to kind of keep that in mind. And also, the field ordnance battery is going to play a little bit different role as well. This is all indirect fire. And the field ordnance battery only has 1 indirect fire option. So that's a good thing to keep in mind about why these are different. And now I want to tell you about today's video sponsor, Adeptroll. Adeptroll is a free all-in-one MathHammer app in iOS and Android. It's simple to use, letting you quickly run MathHammer simulations for any Warhammer 40k unit. You can import profiles directly to Battlescribe, update weapon stats to match your units, load an opponent, and run detailed simulations in seconds. For example, here I've imported the new artillery team unit and updating its weapon profile to match all the special rules that it has. With one tap, Adept Roll calculates everything and provides a range of detailed stats to help you find the most effective combinations for your army, and in this instance, it's to kill the Legionnaires. With Adept Roll, you will have the insights to make tactical decisions and bring victory to your battles. So what are you waiting for? Check out the links below and get it on your iOS or your Android phone today to make sure that you're using the right weapons on the right units to take out the right opponents to win the victory for the Imperium. So enough of that. Enough about gushing over its weapon profiles. Let's talk about what makes this unit special and its ability. That is Remorseless Barrage. In your shooting phase, after this model has shot, if one or more of those attacks made with an indirect fire weapon, okay, not the lasgun, the indirect fire weapons, scored a hit against an enemy unit, that unit must take a battle shock test. If an infantry unit was hit by one or more attacks by a multiple rocket launcher, remember I said that multiple rocket launcher had an extra little buff, they must subtract 1 from their battle shock test when doing so. So this unit is meant to have your opponent roll a bunch of battle shock tests. Now, we all know battle shock is, it depends. Sometimes you get hit with Shadows in the Warp by Tyranids and you fail 2/3 of your tests. Sometimes you don't fail any of them. And that's kind of the thing with battle shock tests and your leadership is it comes into play sometimes and then sometimes it doesn't. And that's just something kind of to keep in mind. Like this unit, Leadership 7, with 2 dice, you have a little bit above 50-50 chance of always passing. Okay. So, but since most things are Leadership 7, Space Marines are Leadership 6 sometimes, then, you know, that means about 1 of every 2 things you hit, or a little less, they're going to be battle shocked. And that means they're going to lose their buffs oftentimes, or lose their OC, and then they're no longer controlling an objective. That is something that's really cool about this unit. Most of its weapons, except for the siege cannon, are infantry based, right? Shooting elites, shooting hordes, or just guaranteeing the multiple rocket launcher what it is good at is helping to guarantee your opponent will fail their battle shock tests. And it guarantees some wounds, and it has more average shots than the heavy quad launcher variant. So this is going to be really good at stirring the pot of getting your opponent to break, to lose their objectives, to not be able to use stratagems and so forth because you have battle shocked their units. What is also really interesting about that is like with the siege cannon, right? So that means you'll be able to hit your opponent's tanks, hurt them, and maybe battle shock them. Not too many people expect that, right? That's not common, other than Tyranids, to really have abilities that way, that folks are really looking for. So I think that's interesting. You could take up to 3 of these in an army. So it'd be 3 separate units every turn you're forcing to take battle shock tests. So even if you don't kill the unit, say you're taking multiple rocket launchers and you're shooting your opponent's home field objective, their deployment zone objective that they're controlling and scoring points on every round, you're gonna hit them. You're definitely gonna hurt them and kill 1 or 2 models. If it's just a chaff unit like cultists or jackals or something, you're gonna kill a few. And then they're going to take a battle shock test. And if it's a multiple rocket launcher, at -1 at that. So that means they're going to need an 8 or higher to pass. Okay, on 2d6 and 8 or higher. That's not great odds. That starts to hurt. And then they go to OC0 and they lose the objective, right? So then at the end of your turn, or at the beginning of their turn, they're not controlling it. And they can't use stratagems on it and so forth. So that's kind of really good to just keep in mind. And I think this unit has a lot of utility in that way. And I do like that it has a variety of weapons, and there's different ways you can kind of run it and use it. The downside to this unit is really that it has such a huge base size. This is a 130 millimeter base, okay? 130 millimeters. It's very big. And so that's going to take up a lot of space in your deployment zone. It's going to be tough to hide this unit. And that's where something like the Siege Regiment may be best, so that you could use the smoke screen from the detachment rules to give this unit stealth if it is exposed. If it is exposed, also, and you give it take aim, it's got heavy, that means it's going to be hitting on threes with things it can't hit. And that can get pretty deadly, especially with like that siege cannon or the heavy quad launcher, right? That gets pretty nasty. Or the heavy mortar. If it had line of sight, so your opponent didn't get any cover, and then you had the AP -1 and flat 2 damage. Ooh, hitting on threes with take aim, direct line of sight shooting. Ouch, that's going to hurt. I mean, we got things that do it better. The Malus rocket launcher is a bit better at killing infantry that way, but this thing is also very strong, and I like it a lot for being that way. Well, that's it. That's all I have for you today. I just wanted to basically cover the basics of this unit. It's artillery. You're going to hide it in your backfield, and you might poke it out a little bit into a lane of fire. That's really the strategy around it. You're going to keep it screened. You're going to keep it away from things. That's what we always do with artillery. So you got to keep these things protected. You got to keep buffers around it. Don't let your opponent deep strike into your artillery, or they're gone. And you're not going to be able to shoot them, and you're going to regret it because they're not a vehicle, right? These are infantry units. So if they get tagged to melee, even if they survive the melee, they're not shooting. So you got to keep them screened. You got to keep them safe, and you got to tuck them away in your backfield, maybe with 1 or 2 open lanes of fire poking out. If you got them well protected, and buff their shooting and make your opponent regret popping out into those lanes of fire you may have. But that's really it for this unit. It's nice, simple, and straightforward, and I really like its weapons, and I like its unit ability as well. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe if you don't already. I know only about half of you do, so I can see the data. So I always appreciate it when you all do that, and I hope you've been enjoying the videos. If you have been enjoying the videos, though, you can also support me directly through the affiliate links below in the video description, or through my own web store, or you can even join and become a member and join the Cadian Sergeant Steel Discord, where we're having chats about the new detachments and units and abilities and painting and everything else we love about the hobby. So we're all there hanging out, having a good time. It's just getting started, so you could be one of the earlier folks in, hanging out with all the rest of us. And I just really appreciate each and every one of you. So that's it for today. So have fun wargaming. And remember, Cadia stands.